My name is Marisol Vega. I'm 29, and I work supply chain for a restaurant equipment company. One of those jobs where your biggest emergencies are delayed pallets and backordered parts, not sirens and gunshots. Which is ironic, considering the man I loved lived for chaos like it was oxygen. Connor Pierce was 26, Metro PD Patrol, about 4 years in. If you asked him who he was, he'd say cop before he'd say boyfriend without even thinking. The badge wasn't something he wore, it was something he believed made him real. And for a while I thought that kind of certainty was attractive. On paper, we made sense. He chased adrenaline, I kept the lights on. I handled the quiet machinery of adult life. Rent paid on time, groceries stocked, insurance renewed, birthday gifts ordered 2 weeks early because I hated scrambling. Connor handled the stories. The kind you tell at parties where everyone leans in, half horrified, half impressed. At first, it felt balanced, like I was the calm shore and he was the tide. But slowly, the shore started disappearing. Plans became maybe. Date nights became, if I'm not held over. Arguments became, you don't understand. And the worst part? I started believing him. I started trimming pieces of myself to fit around his schedule like a dress I kept taking in, until I didn't recognize the shape anymore. The shift happened so gradually, I can't name the exact day it started, only the way it looked in small moments. Connor answering his phone at dinner, standing up from the table, like the call mattered more than the person sitting across from him. Connor falling asleep with his hand still on his radio, like even in dreams he needed the world to know he was on duty. Connor kissing my forehead instead of my mouth when he got home, like I was something domestic and harmless, like I belonged in a different category than desire. I told myself it was stress, that he'd adjust, that once he got into detectives, or whatever the next rung was, things would settle. But Connor didn't want settled. He wanted important. And if I'm being honest, the first time I felt truly replaced wasn't when another woman entered the picture. It was when I realized I wasn't even competing with a person. I was competing with his badge. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday in mid-April. Connor stood in our kitchen, uniform half on, tugging his belt through the loops, while I poured coffee like a ritual meant to keep life normal. Back-to-back shifts, he said, not looking up. Big operation. I won't be home until Thursday morning. I paused with the mug in my hand. Thursday? He finally met my eyes, flat, impatient. They need all hands on deck. Okay, I said, because I'd learned that pushing only made him pull away harder. He snorted like my agreement irritated him more than an argument would have. Don't wait up, Connor added, grabbing a protein bar off the counter. Then, like an afterthought sharpened into a blade, he said, not like you ever do anything interesting anyway. He walked out before I could respond. The door clicked shut and the silence left behind wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, like the house was holding its breath. I stood there with coffee cooling in my hands and realized something ugly. He didn't just take me for granted. He looked down on me. That night, I didn't plan to do anything dramatic. I cleaned the kitchen, I folded laundry, I answered 2 emails from work. I even watched half an episode of some show I barely followed, just to prove to myself I was still normal. But my brain kept replaying that line. Not like you ever do anything interesting anyway. Around 11 p.m., I remembered the laptop. We had this old MacBook we used to share back when Connor and I first moved in together, before his work-issued tablet, before his secure systems, before every device in our home felt like it belonged more to his job than to our life. He barely touched the MacBook anymore. It lived in the closet, collecting dust like a forgotten version of us. I told myself I was just going to check if he'd ever logged into our utilities account on it. We'd been having issues with billing. That was a reasonable excuse. Except the moment I opened the closet and saw it, my hands moved like I was being pulled by something I didn't want to name. I carried it to the dining table and flipped it open. The screen lit up, and my stomach tightened. Because there it was, his cloud account, still synced, still logged in, like Connor had simply forgotten that shared devices remember what people try to bury. Messages, photos, notes, everything. Just sitting there, waiting for someone curious enough or hurt enough to look. My fingers hovered above the trackpad like I was about to cross a line I couldn't uncross. Then I heard Connor's voice in my head, dismissive and cruel. You don't do anything interesting anyway. Fine. I opened messages, and there it was, a conversation thread with someone saved as Jay. At first, it was exactly what you'd expect. Flirty garbage stretched across months like a slow drip of poison. Hey, beautiful. Miss you already. When can I see you again? My mouth went dry. I kept reading because my body needed certainty, the way it needs air when it's drowning. January was flirting. February was rot. Connor wasn't just venting, he was painting me as something repulsive. He called me dead weight, a loser with zero ambition. He said I made his skin crawl when I touched him. One message hit so hard I had to press my palm to the table to steady myself. Coming home to her feels like coming home to a corpse. I stared at that sentence until the words blurred. And Jay, whoever Jay was, fed it back to him like candy. Told you, you deserve excitement. You deserve someone who appreciates you. It wasn't just an affair, it was a shared language of contempt. Then March came. March 8th. That was the day the tone shifted from dirty thrill to something colder. Jay. Babe. I think I'm being followed. There's a cop car outside my place again. Connor. Probably nothing. Jay. No, it's the same car. Same people. Can you check for me? I'm freaking out. I felt my scalp prickle. 3 hours later, Connor responded with an image. A screenshot. And I recognized the interface immediately. Not because I'd seen it in real life, but because Connor had bragged about it a dozen times at dinner like it made him powerful. The department's case management system. Confidential. Officer access only. The screenshot showed an active surveillance operation. Jay's real name, Jordan Lane, 28. And beside it, notes tying her to a drug distribution network. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. Because the betrayal I thought I was uncovering just cracked open into something bigger, something that didn't end with heartbreak. Connor didn't just cheat. He was using his badge to protect the woman he cheated with. And if those files were real, then the man I slept beside wasn't just lying to me. He was committing felonies with a smile. I scrolled down, hands shaking, and saw the next message Connor sent after the screenshot. You're good. Lay low tonight. They're watching the wrong side of the block. My stomach turned violently. Because suddenly, the worst thing in the room wasn't the affair. It was the fact that Connor's loyalty had a price tag, and he was paying it with other people's lives. I didn't cry right away. That's what surprised me. I sat there at the dining table with the MacBook's glow staining my hands pale, like I'd been dipped in cold milk. My heart was racing, but my face stayed still, frozen in that numb way your body gets when it's trying to keep you functional. Because crying would have meant this was only personal. And it wasn't. Not anymore. I scrolled back up, then down again, rereading March 8th like maybe my eyes were lying to me. Like maybe Connor had screenshotted something harmless, and I was twisting it because my ego was bruised. But the words didn't change. Surveillance, case file, active investigation, known associate. And right there, in Connor's casual, confident tone, was the part that made me feel sick. Lay low tonight. Like he was texting someone about weather. Like he wasn't tipping off a woman connected to drugs. Like he wasn't reaching into a system he swore he respected, then handing its secrets to the very person it was built to stop. I forced myself to keep going. Because once you've discovered a crack in a wall, you don't walk away. You press your fingers into it until you know whether the entire house is about to collapse. March wasn't a one-time slip. March was a pattern. Over the next 2 months, Connor sent screenshot after screenshot, case files, surveillance logs, raid schedules, even notes that listed officers assigned. Sometimes Jordan begged. Sometimes she flirted. Sometimes she panicked. And Connor obliged. Jordan. Babe, can you check if they're watching me again? I swear someone's been circling. Connor. Give me 10. And then, 10 minutes later, another image. Another slice of something that never should have left a police database. I wanted to slam the laptop shut. I wanted to throw it across the room. But my hands just kept scrolling. The deeper I went, the more my brain split into 2 voices. One voice was the woman who'd shared a bed with him, who'd defended him at family gatherings, who'd told her friends, he's intense because he cares. That voice kept whispering, maybe he's being manipulated. The other voice was colder. It said he knows exactly what he's doing, and he chose it. April got worse. That's when Jordan mentioned a name, someone close enough to their circle that she said it like gossip, not like danger. Jordan. Tony's talking to them. I heard he flipped. Connor. You sure? Jordan. I'm sure. He's wearing a wire. Connor answered with the kind of certainty that made my blood go cold. I saw the paperwork. Then, don't tell him you know. My throat closed up because I'd watched enough true crime documentaries, enough courtroom dramas to understand what that meant. Informants get protection for a reason. People die over that kind of information. And Connor, my boyfriend, my steady partner in a messy world, was warning Jordan about who had flipped. Jordan, you just saved my life, babe. Seriously, I can't lose you. I stared at that line until my eyes burnt. Not because I cared that Jordan couldn't lose him, because I realized Connor had 2 lives. And in the life he was building with her, he wasn't a boyfriend who came home late. He was a weapon. I kept reading, and something else surfaced, something uglier than the crime itself. Connor's hatred for me didn't begin when I looked through the laptop. It had been blooming for months. He told her I was boring, a weight, a sedative. He laughed when she mocked my job. He described me like I was furniture. He wrote things about my body that made me feel like my skin didn't belong to me anymore. She tries to be cute when she talks about her work. It's pathetic. I swear I'd rather take another overtime shift than listen to her talk about shipping delays. I felt my stomach twist, not with jealousy, but with humiliation so sharp it felt like a bruise under my ribs. Because the betrayal wasn't only that he cheated, it was that he enjoyed destroying me in private. And Jordan fed him more reasons to keep doing it. By May, though, the text shifted again. Jordan started getting distant. Connor's messages got longer, more desperate. He'd send paragraphs and wait hours for her to respond. Connor, are you okay? Did I do something? Connor, just tell me you're safe. Connor, I can't focus at work when you disappear like this. Jordan would reply with 2 words, busy, later, and then nothing. That's when I understood something that should have made me feel better, but didn't. Connor wasn't in control. He was being used. And instead of snapping out of it, he doubled down. Because he didn't love Jordan like a person. He loved her like proof. Proof that he was exciting. Proof that his badge mattered. Proof he had a world outside our quiet apartment where someone wanted him. By June, Jordan stopped replying completely. Connor kept sending her case updates anyway, as if he was trying to buy her attention with stolen information, like he was sliding bribes across the table. Then the messages turned frantic. Connor, please just tell me what I did wrong. Connor, I've risked everything for you. Connor, I could go to prison for what I've done. Connor, answer me. Nothing. He'd destroyed our relationship and compromised real investigations for a woman who wouldn't even type okay. I felt a hot pressure behind my eyes, but I didn't let it out. Not yet. Because the crying part of me didn't get to drive tonight. The survival part did. I started taking screenshots. Every cruel insult, every file, every raid schedule, every timestamp where Connor accessed the system, then immediately messaged Jordan. I exported the entire chat history. I backed it up to a USB drive I found in the junk drawer, the one we used for tax forms. Then I backed it up again, into a cloud account Connor didn't know existed. And then I started building a timeline. I'm not heroic, I'm not dramatic, but supply chain teaches you one thing. If you don't document, you don't exist. Receipts matter. Dates matter. Metadata matters. I wrote it all down like I was prepping for court, because some quiet instinct in me already understood where this was headed. By 4 a.m. I had a folder. Organized, labeled, airtight. 47 screenshots, full chat export, a 3-page timeline with dates, times, and context. But I wasn't done. If Connor was doing this, if he was this careless, what else was he hiding? I didn't want to believe there was more, but belief wasn't a luxury I could afford anymore. So I went to his car. Connor's patrol vehicle was department issued, but he also had his personal car, a Mazda 3 he'd had since college. It was parked in the driveway. He'd driven it to the station and caught a ride with another officer to start the operation. I grabbed the spare key from the hook by the door. My hands trembled as I stepped outside. The air was cold, damp, sharp enough to slice through my hoodie. I remember thinking how unfair it was that the world looked normal. Quiet street, porch light humming, a neighbor's dog barking in the distance. Like my life wasn't actively splitting in half. The car was clean. Too clean. Connor wasn't a neat freak. He left receipts in his cup holder. He left gum wrappers in the console. He left his socks on the floor like a man who assumed someone else would pick them up. But this car looked staged. I checked the glove box, the center console, under the seats. Nothing. Then I popped the trunk. His gym bag was back there. Black, scuffed, familiar. I unzipped it. Workout clothes, deodorant, a water bottle. Then I saw the side pocket. Zipped shut. Bulging weird, like something stiff and packed wrong. My heart stuttered. I told myself it was probably protein bars, maybe spare ammo, maybe nothing. But my fingers moved anyway. I opened the zipper. Inside was a large Ziploc bag. Not a sandwich bag, a quart-size freezer bag. And inside that were smaller bags. Dozens. Each one filled with pills, different colors, different shapes. Packaged like product, like inventory, like something meant to be handed off in pieces. I stood there at 5 a.m. in my driveway holding a bag that looked like enough evidence to ruin Connor's entire life. And in that moment, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt terrified. Because if Connor was willing to leak files and keep this in his trunk, then I wasn't just dating a man who cheated. I was living with a man who could destroy me if he decided I was in the way. My hands went numb around the plastic. I forced myself not to touch anything else. Chain of custody matters. If this ever became official, I couldn't afford someone saying I planted it, or moved it, or tampered. So I did the one thing my panicked brain could think of that still felt controlled. I called an attorney I knew from college. He answered an hour later, voice sleepy but sharp, the second I said criminal matter. I explained what I found without giving too many details, and he told me exactly what to do. Time-stamped photos, wide shots showing context, close-ups showing detail. Record a video. Narrate what you're seeing. Say when you found it. Say you haven't touched the contents. Airtight integrity. So I did it. I set the bag on the bumper. I turned my phone camera on. And in a voice that didn't sound like mine, calm, clinical, I said, "Today is Wednesday, April 17th, approximately 5:15 a.m. I'm at my residence. This is my boyfriend's vehicle. I found this bag and his gym bag in the trunk. I have not touched the contents. I am recording this to establish I did not plant or alter anything." I opened the Ziploc on camera, showed the smaller bags, described what I was seeing. Then I put everything back exactly where I found it. Zipped the pocket, closed the trunk, locked the car. I uploaded the video to the same private cloud account. Added it to the evidence folder. Now I had two things. Proof Connor was leaking classified information to Jordan, and proof he was in possession of what looked like dealer quantities of controlled substances. Enough to end his career. Maybe enough to send him to prison. I went back inside, shut the door, and leaned my forehead against it. For the first time, I felt the tears come. Not because I missed Connor, but because I finally understood the truth. The person I thought I was building a life with had been building a criminal one behind my back. And soon, very soon, I was going to have to look him in the eyes and watch him lie to my face like it was nothing. I didn't sleep. I tried, lying on the couch with a blanket pulled up to my chin, the TV murmuring nonsense into the dark, but my body refused to shut down. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw pills spilling out of plastic bags. I saw Connor's fingers scrolling through files that weren't his to share. I heard the way he'd laughed with Jordan about how boring I was. By the time the sun came up, exhaustion had hollowed me out into something sharp and alert. I showered, changed clothes, made coffee. Not because I felt normal, but because routine was the only thing keeping me from unraveling. At 8:07 a.m., I heard the familiar sound of Connor's car in the driveway. My chest tightened. This was it. He walked in like nothing had happened. Uniform wrinkled, hair messy, that tired but proud look he always wore after a long shift, like exhaustion was proof of virtue. "Hey, babe," he said lightly. "You're up early." I was sitting at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug I hadn't touched. Couldn't sleep. He leaned down and kissed the top of my head. I didn't flinch, but every nerve in my body screamed. "Work stressing you out?" he asked, pouring himself coffee like this was any other Thursday. He leaned against the counter and studied me. "You okay? You seem off." I met his eyes. "Yeah," I said. "Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something." He nodded easily. "Sure, what's up?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I didn't cry. I pulled out my phone. Opened the photos. Turned the screen toward him. "Do you want to explain why there's a bag full of pills in your gym bag in the trunk of your car?" His face drained of color. The mug froze halfway to his mouth. "What?" he said too quickly. "Your car," I repeated. "Your gym bag. Side pocket." He set the mug down slowly, carefully, like sudden movement might shatter something. "You went through my car?" he said, his tone shifting. There it was. Not panic, not denial. Indignation. "That's what you're concerned about?" I asked quietly. "Privacy?" He straightened, shoulders squaring, the posture he used at work. "You had no right," he said. "You violated my privacy." "There's enough pills in that bag to stock a pharmacy," I replied. "What is going on, Connor?" He crossed his arms. "It's not what it looks like." "Then what is it?" He hesitated just long enough to tell me he was choosing his words. "I'm holding them for Jordan." The name landed between us like a dropped plate. I laughed. I couldn't help it. "You're holding them?" I said. "You, a police officer, are holding distribution quantities of drugs for your ex-girlfriend?" "It's complicated." "No," I said. "It's actually very uncomplicated." He looked down at the floor. "It's temporary." "Until what? Until she moves them? Until she sells them?" "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I cut in. "What I don't understand is how you thought this would never blow up." He exhaled sharply. "How do you even know about Jordan?" I looked at him steadily. "The same way I know you've been sending her classified case files for 3 months." His eyes snapped up. The same way I know you've been feeding her raid schedules and surveillance notes. Silence. The same way I know she ghosted you 6 weeks ago, I continued, my voice steady, and you've been spiraling ever since. His mouth opened, closed. I watched his brain reboot in real time. The laptop, I said calmly. You left your cloud synced. I read everything. He grabbed the edge of the counter like he needed it to stay upright. You can't. Can't what? I asked. Prove you've been committing felonies? He swallowed. Because I can. I stood and slid my phone across the table. I have screenshots, full chat exports, a timeline, everything you accessed, everything you sent her, backed up in 3 different places. For a split second, he looked like he might cry. Then the expression changed. The shock melted away. And something cold slid into its place. You need to delete that, he said. No. I'm serious, Marisol. He stepped toward me. Delete it. All of it. Not happening. You don't understand what you're doing, he said sharply. That information could... What? I snapped. End your career? Send you to prison? He didn't answer. If you show anyone those messages, he said slowly, I'll tell them the drugs are yours. The room tilted. Excuse me? You heard me. His voice was flat, controlled. I'll say I found them in your stuff. That I was gathering evidence to report you. Who do you think they'll believe? A police officer? Or a supply chain clerk? You're threatening to frame me. I'm protecting myself. My hand shook, but my voice didn't. You're trying to ruin my life over a mistake, he said. A mistake? I laughed bitterly. You helped a drug dealer avoid arrest for months. You endangered people. That's not a mistake. That's a series of choices. He was scared, Connor snapped. I was trying to help. You were in love with her, I said. Don't dress this up like charity. His eyes went wet. So what? He demanded. You're just going to destroy me after everything? You destroyed us the moment you started sleeping with her, I said quietly. I read the messages I cut in. The can't wait to see you tonight texts. The last night was amazing ones. I know everything. The tears stopped. The cold came back. If you turn me in, Connor said softly, I'll make sure you go down with me. My stomach dropped. I'll say you pressured me into looking things up. I'll say you've been abusive, controlling. They'll believe me. He leaned closer. You can't prove anything, and if you try, I'll bury you. I nodded slowly. Got it. I grabbed my keys. I need air, I said. I'm leaving. Don't do this, he said, suddenly frantic. Please. I didn't answer. I walked out, got in my car, and drove until the apartment disappeared behind me. I checked into a hotel across town and sat on the bed staring at the wall for an hour. Then I pulled out my laptop and organized everything. Screenshots, timelines, evidence, and yes, an audio file. Because some part of me had expected this. Expected the threats. So I'd recorded the entire conversation on my phone in my pocket. Every word. Every threat. I had everything I needed. The only question left was what to do with it. And before I could decide, there was a knock on the door. The knock wasn't urgent. It wasn't angry. It was firm, measured, like someone who expected to be answered. I opened the door and found a man in a reflective vest holding a clipboard, his expression neutral in the way people get when they are about to deliver something that isn't their problem. Marisol Vega? He asked. Yes. He glanced down. You've been served. He handed me an envelope, turned, and walked away before I could ask a single question. I closed the door and slid down the wall until I was sitting on the carpet, the envelope heavy in my hands. I knew. I hadn't opened it yet, but I already knew. Inside was a temporary order of protection. Petitioner Connor Pierce, respondent, me. I read it once. Then again, then a third time, slower, like maybe the words would rearrange themselves into something that made sense. According to Connor's statement, I was controlling, emotionally unstable, erratic. He claimed he'd found suspicious pills in our home, no location specified, and became concerned I was involved in illegal activity. As a police officer, he said, he accessed department databases to protect himself, to make sure he wasn't in danger. Then I confronted him. Aggressively, threateningly. He feared for his safety. He needed protection while he figured out his next steps. By the time I finished reading, my hands were shaking so badly I had to set the papers down. It was detailed. Too detailed. The kind of lie you only write when you've rehearsed it in your head. I sat there on the hotel bed, staring at the wall, realizing how close I'd come to losing everything without ever stepping into a courtroom. A protection order, even temporary, sticks. Employers see it. Landlords see it. Background checks flag it. Even if it gets dismissed later, the stain doesn't fully wash out. Connor hadn't just tried to scare me. He tried to brand me. I called my attorney first thing Monday morning, standing in the parking lot of a coffee shop because I didn't want anyone overhearing this mess. Bring me everything, he said. The order, any evidence you have, anything that contradicts his statement. I met him that afternoon. He read the order in silence. Then he listened to the audio recording. Connor's voice clear as day, threatening to frame me, threatening to lie. When it ended, my attorney leaned back in his chair. This is good, he said. Very good. Good? I repeated. It contradicts his entire narrative, he said. The order will almost certainly be denied. Almost? He sighed. You need to understand something. Even a dismissed order can follow you. Some systems don't care about the outcome, just that it existed. That sentence sat in my chest like a weight. Wednesday morning, downtown courthouse. Small courtroom, no drama, no jury, just a judge working through a stack of protection order hearings like paperwork. Connor showed up with his attorney. He wore jeans and a plain sweater, no uniform, hair pulled back neatly, no makeup. He looked fragile, like someone who'd been through hell. It was a good performance. His attorney spoke first, repeating the story from the filing: controlling girlfriend, erratic behavior, drugs found, fear for safety. My client is a police officer, the attorney said. He's trained to recognize dangerous situations. I watched Connor stare at the floor, shoulders slightly hunched, like he couldn't bear to meet my eyes. The judge turned to my attorney. Response? My attorney stood. Your Honor, we have evidence that directly contradicts the petitioner's statement. He held up a phone. Specifically, an audio recording made during the alleged confrontation. The judge nodded. I'll hear it. The room went quiet. Connor's voice filled the courtroom. I'll tell them the drugs are yours. Who do you think they'll believe? A police officer or a supply chain clerk? I'll say you pressured me. I'll say you've been abusive. I watched Connor's face collapse in real time. The recording ended. The judge didn't look at either attorney. Mr. Pierce, she said calmly, did you make these statements? Connor swallowed. I was upset. I said things I didn't mean. You said you would make specific false allegations, the judge replied. Those aren't vague threats. Silence. She flipped through the paperwork once more. The temporary order is denied, she said. I have serious concerns about the credibility of this petition. She looked directly at Connor. If you pursue further action related to these allegations, I strongly suggest you speak honestly with your attorney about the potential consequences. No yelling. No theatrics. Just cold official disapproval. Next case. Connor's attorney packed up quickly. Connor didn't look at me, not once, as he followed him out. I stood there long after they were gone, because that was the moment it clicked. If I hadn't recorded that conversation, if I hadn't documented everything, I'd be standing there with a protection order attached to my name, my career, my future, because the man I loved decided I was expendable. My attorney caught up with me in the hallway. That went well, he said. Yeah. What are you going to do now? I thought about the USB drive in my bag, the cloud folder, the screenshots, the pills in Connor's trunk. I'm going to make a phone call, I said. Internal affairs. He nodded slowly. That's a nuclear option. He just tried to frame me, I replied. What do you think he'll do next if I walk away? Fair point, he said. You'll want representation. I know. I didn't even wait until I got to my car. I stood in the courthouse parking lot and made the call. I need to report an officer, I said when they answered. I have evidence of criminal activity and misuse of department systems. They scheduled me for Monday morning. I went back to the hotel, packed my things, and started organizing everything again. Cleaner, tighter, ready. Connor wanted to use the system as a shield. Fine. I was done playing defense. That night, as I was labeling files, there was another knock at my door. Harder this time. The kind that doesn't ask. I didn't have to look through the peephole to know this wasn't room service. The knock was sharp, authoritative, meant to put your spine straight before you even opened the door. When I did, 2 men stood there, plain clothes, badges out. The older one spoke first. Marisol Vega? Yes. You called professional standards earlier today, he said. We need to talk, now. They didn't ask to come in. They stepped past me like the space already belonged to them. The younger one closed the door and leaned against it, arms crossed, eyes tracking every movement I made. The older man pointed to the desk chair. Have a seat. I sat. They stayed standing. Classic intimidation setup. Before we go any further, the older one said, I need to be clear about something. Filing a false report against a police officer is a serious crime. Do you understand that? I do. Good, he said, because we've dealt with angry partners before, people who decide to invent stories when relationships fall apart. The younger one tilted his head. Your boyfriend filed a protection order against you. Says you've been unstable. Says you found drugs in the house. And the order was dismissed this morning, I said calmly, because he lied. That's convenient timing, the older one replied. No, I said, that's documentation. I gestured to the laptop on the desk. I have evidence, I continued. Messages, screenshots, access logs, photos, audio recordings. They exchanged a look. The older one nodded. Show us. I opened the laptop. Started with the messages between Connor and Jordan. Weeks of conversations filled the screen. Warnings about raids, screenshots of surveillance, informant names. They read in silence. The younger one's posture shifted first. Less aggressive, more alert. These could be faked, the older one said, but his voice had changed. Less certain. They're pulled from a shared cloud account, I replied. Metadata's intact. Device IDs are visible. You can verify all of it. I moved on to the screenshots. Case files accessed from Connor's login. Timestamps lining up with the messages sent minutes later. How did you get these? The older one asked. He left himself logged in on a shared laptop, I said. I documented everything before he could delete it. And the drugs? The younger one asked. In his gym bag, I said. In the trunk of his personal vehicle. I found them last week. I pulled up the photos. The bag, the trunk, the pills. Then the video, time-stamped, narrated, untouched. The room went quiet. Why didn't you report this immediately? The older one asked. Because I needed to understand what I was looking at, I said, and because I needed protection, which turned out to be necessary considering he tried to frame me. The younger one nodded toward the phone on the desk. Play the audio. I did. Connor's voice filled the room. I'll tell them the drugs are yours. I'll say you pressured me. I'll say you've been abusive. When it ended, the older man sat down on the edge of the bed. First time either of them had relaxed. How long has this been going on? He asked. The affair? At least 6 months, I said. The leaks started in March. The drugs, I don't know. You willing to give us everything? He asked. Testify if needed? Yes, even knowing what it would do. They spent the next 2 hours going through everything, asking questions, testing my answers, poking for inconsistencies. They weren't friendly, but they were thorough. Around midnight, the older one stepped into the bathroom to make a call. When he came back, his tone was different. We're taking this seriously, he said, but we need to verify everything independently. He ticked points off on his fingers. We're taking your laptop, copies of all files. We'll pull your financials, phone records, talk to your employer. I understand. And you are not to contact Connor, he continued. You don't warn him. You don't respond if he reaches out. If you tip him off, you'll be charged with obstruction. Crystal clear. They bagged the laptop, had me write a preliminary statement, photographed the dismissed protection order, and handed me paperwork to sign. We'll be in touch, the older one said at the door. Don't leave town. Then they were gone. 5 days passed. No calls, no updates, nothing. On Friday morning at 7:02 a.m., my phone rang. We need you to come in today, the voice said. Bring your attorney. 2 hours later, I was sitting in a conference room at Professional Standards, my attorney beside me, the same 2 investigators across the table. We verified everything, the older one said without preamble. Every access log, every message, it all checks out. My chest loosened for the first time in weeks. We executed a search warrant on your residence this afternoon, he continued. We recovered the drugs exactly where you documented them. Department equipment has been seized. Does he know? My attorney asked. Not yet, the investigator said. His supervisor's being notified within the hour. He'll be pulled from patrol and escorted out. I closed my eyes. Just for a second. Your client is clear, the investigator added, looking at my attorney. Witness, not suspect. Then he looked at me. What you did probably saved lives. I didn't know how to respond to that. They told me the rest clinically. Jordan arrested, lab matches pending, the case moving fast. By the time I left the building, my phone was already buzzing. Missed calls, voicemails. Connor. I didn't listen. His mother called next. How could you do this to him? She demanded. I reported crimes, I said. He committed them. He's devastated, she said. He's talking about hurting himself. Then you should call a crisis line, I replied. I'm not his shield anymore. She hung up. That night, Connor left a voicemail. 2 minutes of crying, yelling, blaming. You destroyed me, he said. I hope it was worth it. I deleted it. 3 weeks later, the investigation finished. And everything he'd tried to bury came roaring back into the light. The disciplinary hearing was scheduled for mid-July. I didn't attend. Not because I was afraid, but because I didn't need to see it to know how it would go. I'd already watched Connor lie in our kitchen. I'd watched him lie on paper. I'd watched him try to weaponize the system against me. There was nothing left for me to witness. The lead investigator called me afterward. They'd brought everything. My evidence, their access logs, witness testimony, surveillance records, the lab results. Connor tried the manipulation defense, claimed Jordan pressured him, claimed he was scared, claimed he'd lost control. Then they played the audio. The room went quiet after that. The investigator told me the panel didn't deliberate long. 20 minutes, maybe less. Dismissed from service with cause. Lifetime ban from law enforcement in the state. Security clearance revoked. Referred to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. Just like that, the badge that had always come first was gone. The DA took another 2 weeks before filing charges. They wanted everything airtight. When they moved hard. 4 felonies. Misuse of computer systems, obstruction of justice, possession with intent to distribute, official misconduct. Connor's attorney negotiated a plea deal. Plead guilty to 1 count of official misconduct. 5 years probation. Permanent loss of clearance. If he violated probation even once, the original charges came roaring back, up to 8 years on the table. It wasn't mercy. It was leverage. He took it. I filed for separation the same week he signed the plea paperwork. He didn't contest it. Didn't ask for anything. Just signed where his attorney told him to sign. By October, I was living in a new apartment downtown. New place, new routines, silence that felt earned instead of lonely. I got a promotion at work. Nothing dramatic, just more responsibility, better pay, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing my life wasn't built on borrowed authority. Connor's life went the opposite direction. Last I heard, he was working customer service for a cable company, living with his parents because no one would rent to him with his record. Probation check-ins. Background checks killing every application before it started. Jordan got sentenced around the same time, 5 years federal. She'd be eligible for parole in 3 with good behavior. Connor tried to visit her. She refused. Wouldn't even put him on the list. Even after everything he'd done, everything he'd destroyed, she still didn't want him. That was the part that finally felt poetic. 6 months after the divorce finalized, Connor texted me. First direct contact since it ended. I know you don't want to hear from me, but I'm desperate. Every job runs a background check. Could you talk to your company? Maybe get me an interview? I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed 1 sentence. You made your choices. Live with them. I blocked his number. Permanently. I'm doing fine now. Normal life. No chaos. No sirens. No secrets humming under the floorboards. Connor used to say he'd take a bullet for the badge. Turns out all it took was a shared laptop, a USB drive, and 1 phone call for the badge to take him down instead.